Hey, 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 I am Valerie Latrell, and welcome to the Single, Saved, and Dating Show. Hey, 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 and welcome to Single, Saved, and Dating TV. I am your host, Valerie Latrell, and today we have a special guest in the studio, Mr. Wayne Dean. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And so what I thought would be a great idea, Single, Saved, and Dating TV is not just about scripture references. We talk about the Lord, of course, but we also want to introduce those things that people usually don't talk that much about. But I thought it was so important to have you here today, Mr. Dean, because it is important to have your finances in order. Not just wait until you're married, but you should start preparing to be financially independent on your own first, so that when you come together with the person, the woman or man of God that God has ordained for you, you're not a liability. You would present yourself as an asset. Am I right?
You are absolutely correct. We need to have, we often say I'm looking for someone, and we know what type of person, we should know what type of person we're looking for. But what preparations do we make to be the type of person that they're looking for?
Correct.
Especially financially.
That's right. And I was telling, can I call you Wayne?
Absolutely.
I was telling Wayne that, oftentimes when we are, and I've been married before, right? Or some of you have been married before, is that sometimes when you are preparing for the wedding, no one really prepares for the marriage. We're saving up money for the reception. We're saving up money for the wedding gown. We're saving up money to make this grand, image to the folks that will come and share in the day with us. But nobody is thinking about what actually happens after the wedding. We get into debt. We go into a relationship not really thinking that now we're getting into debt just to have a wedding. And that's not really the right thing to do.
Well, what you described is actually called the money moon. So now we've done all what you said. It was great. And now we come to the money moon phase. So now we have to start looking at our financial philosophies, putting them together. How are we going to live happily ever after financially?
That's right. Yeah, because even in a marriage, a topic that will come up more so than not is finances. Now we're not just going on a date together, whether it's Dutch or you're paying for the date, but finances is a huge part of living. We have to pay our mortgage. We have to pay our bills. And so it's important to really understand finances and what does that mean to the individual first, before you can expect to now give your debt and share your debt with someone else and expect them to come in to help you and save the day.
So a lot of times when we're dating or we're getting to know someone, we've learned really bad habits.
Yeah.
We have not learned money habits. So what's your favorite sport team?
Yeah.
What do you like? This, but we never talk about, are you a saver or a spender?
Listen.
It's great that we take you out and we go to nice fancy places. But did you plan for this?
Yes.
Or, instead of us going to this really expensive restaurant, how about we cook at home? And for the other person not to think that, and in most instances, I know we're in 2020, but
Sure.
men still being men, we pay.
Yeah.
And instead of a woman saying, oh, he's cheap, well, have this conversation and find out if he's planning for his future. Maybe instead of spending $100 on a night out, he'll cook because he's saving for a home.
Yes.
Or he's thinking thinking about retirement planning, or he has those. So those are the conversations that we really need to have leading up to that day when we come together as one.
Yeah, that, and you made a good point. I know when I was married, hey, listen, I'm just going to tell the truth, right, Shady Devil? When I was married, there were times I would go to the mall, go to the shopping mall, and I'd buy things, and I'd put that bag in the trunk. Because I didn't want husband to know that I was out, buying these things. Not that I couldn't afford them, but it was just that I didn't want to have to explain why I just spent $100 or $200 on something that I really didn't need, right? And I think that that's the important part, is really understanding what are our priorities. What should we be doing, as a single? How should we? Because another conversation, you brought up a great point about we're not having the appropriate conversations when we're dating. We're not asking, how's your credit? We're not asking that question, but then when we get married and we're at the table and we're trying to get pre-qualified to purchase a home, now we can't get a home because your credit is jacked up. I'm sorry, I just have to say it that way.
That's what it is.
And you can't even get upset of the individual because you did not do your homework. So this is why it's imperative to have these types of conversations, because if a man has a vision and we've got to build together, how do we build without credit? How do we build without finances? We can go on my coattail, but that only can take us so far. But if we're together and we have great credit and we have the finances, we can do amazing things, but we become restricted because we didn't have the right conversations.
And we have to understand what credit is, and like your question, what should we be planning for? So most of the people don't really get a financial education. We do a great job of going to school, we get highly educated, but we're never educated on finances. And when the paycheck comes in, it's one of the few things that does not come with the instructions.
True.
So we're forced to lean on what we've known in the past.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at our finances, whether we're together or individually, one of the things that we should do is 50% of what we have should go towards living expenses.
Okay.
So that's your mortgage or your rent, that's inclusive of your transportation, utilities, and another thing, I'm saying utilities, but we have to distinguish the difference between living expenses and debt.
Yes.
So
yes.
Credit cards, things like that, that's debt. We don't have to always have debt.
Correct.
Living expenses are going to always be there.
That's right.
Okay, so 50% towards living expenses. Then we need another 30% should go towards flexible spending. So when you were going out and you were buying this stuff and putting it in the trunk of the car.
Yes.
And this is a little side of it was funny. One day I was on the phone with my wife and we were talking and she was telling me, she told me where she was, the area where she was. She was by the mall.
Okay.
So I was by the mall.
Okay.
So we're talking on the phone, we're talking. And she walked in the store and she's just talking, does not know that I'm behind her.
Oh, wow.
So I go, so what are you going to buy? And she looks up, oh my God, you scared me. Come on, let's go home.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
Yeah. Hey.
But the problem was not that she was in the mall.
Yeah.
Let's plan for it.
Yes.
It's flexible spending. Let's
Yes.
make it a part of our budget.
Yes.
I want you to have the things that you want.
Correct.
Know the difference between wants and needs. We have to take care of our needs first. Then we can work on our wants. So 30% of that should go towards that, and then 20% should go towards our finances.
Okay.
Our retirement planning, our tithe and offering.
Yes.
I know when we do this from my side of the table as a professional, everybody's not saved and love the Lord, and so you might have to believe in tithing, but that should always be your first step.
Now listen, I'm gonna tell you something, Wayne. When I pay my tithes, it's something about paying your tithes. It is something about sowing into things that reap good harvest, right? When I pay my tithes, my money stretches, like to the point where I'll pay my tithes, and then when I go to my bank account, I'm like, it looks like I didn't spend nothing. Like literally. And years ago, I learned that as an art, that tithing, you give not so much to expect anything in return, but God is just so graceful that he is going to give you. That's like if you look at the Luke chapter 6 and 38, it says, give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give unto your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. Yeah. It's in the Bible. It's in the Word of God. And even when you give with a grateful heart. Not giving like, oh gosh, I don't feel like paying this. That's not the way God wants us to give. Because I believe that when you tithe and when you give into what God's plan is, whether it is financial, God can bless you physically. He can bless you spiritually. So it's not so much of a financial thing, but when you give, I'm a living witness that when you give, God gives back to you. Oftentimes I'll go through my house and I'll pick out clothes and shoes or perfume, things that I no longer have need of, that I just sitting there collecting dust. Well, if I don't give anything away, there's no room to put anything in there.
You're making room for your harvest.
I'm making room for my harvest. So it's so important to give it. And going back to your wife, and I think you've been married, what now, 24 years. He can tell us.
Same woman, 24 years.
Same woman, 24 years. Wow, that's amazing. So what would be some truth that you can give to us singles that are dating? Like, what sort of things outside of, I know we kind of talked a little bit about, maybe not going out all the time, maybe cooking in at home, doing those things. But what sorts of things should we be doing? Should we be paying down our credit cards? Because I'll tell you, when I purchased my first home, when they're looking at your credit cards, you can have credit cards, you can have several credit cards, but it is debt, and they call it debt to income ratio, right? So when you have these credit cards, that's a good thing in some regard, but then on the other side of the spectrum, it can also count against you. So, like, what are some of the things that you might tell us singles? How do we prepare for, being that spouse that's not bringing a liability, but being an asset?
Well, the first thing is, even as a single, think about what you want to do.
Okay.
And be honest with yourself.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And that's hard. And I'm saying, like, just be honest with yourself. But that's really hard. And know yourself. If you're a spender, then acknowledge it.
Yes.
It's not going to send you to hell. You're okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, we have problems with, everybody, think that I'm perception. Just be you. Be comfortable in your skin and who you are.
Right.
So, look at what you want to do. Think about what you want for your future.
Yeah.
I always said I knew who I wanted my wife to be. I just did not know who she was going to.
Ah, interesting.
I knew the type of woman that I wanted, because at that time back then, I knew that I wasn't good with money.
Good point.
I had no problems with spending money.
Yeah.
And I wanted somebody that was good with money.
Yeah.
And God being God actually put me in the financial services, and so I now know the importance of, like you say, your credit score.
Yes.
You can have a multitude of credit cards, just don't use them. Debt to income ratio is simply this: how much credit do you have, and how much are you using, in comparison to what your income is?
Okay.
And it should be 30% or less. So you have credit card debt. If your usage is 30% or less, you're pretty good.
Okay.
A lot of times when they say we're gonna get myself together,
like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Get yourself together. What does that mean? Yeah.
That means that in the church world, like, as soon as I get myself together, I'm giving my life to the Lord. No, you just have to start working on yourself, and it's little by little.
And you make the decision.
You make a decision.
Like, and I always say, it's never too late. Now is the time.
Absolutely.
Once you become aware, this is where you begin to change your habits. This is where you start to do things differently and think and like we said, make that assessment of who you are. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, because if I'm the spouse that likes to spend, should be the spouse that is responsible for paying all the bills every month, right? Now, know who you are, know where you need to improve, and then know how to be upfront with your spouse. Because a lot of times we get into relationships and we might know our own truths, but we hold that back with the hopes that our spouse doesn't find that part out about us. But truth of the matter is, before the marriage, you really should know who you are. Because if you don't really know who you are, how do you expect someone else to get to know who you are?
And your spouse will find out who you are when the bills are being paid late.
Right. When the lights get turned off.
Right. But you have a new outfit.
Yeah.
You know,
you're going out of town.
Exactly. All of these little things. So it is important to be upfront.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you with yourself and when you come in union.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's talk about, you know, what are your financial goals?
Mm-hmm.
What about retirement?
Mm-hmm.
Who's paying for college?
Yeah.
I was huge on I'm not paying for college.
Yeah.
I paid for private school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not paying for college.
Mm-hmm.
Then it came time for college. They're like, okay, well, she's going to be able to leave the house and empty nest. Okay, I'll pay for college. It changed.
Yeah.
It changed, but, you know, knowing that and preparing and planning and sitting down together.
Yes.
I want to just go back for a quick second to what you said about tithing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a relationship between you and Christ. That's really what it is.
Yes.
You know, the church that you tied to is the place that you use. It's a personal relationship between you and Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the union of marriage is a personal relationship between you and your spouse.
Yes.
And you come together and you work it out. Mm-hmm. You plan, you do different things. So when we tithe, we reap that harvest. And when we come together in the union and we plan, we understand where we're going and what we're doing. We're walking together along the same path. The road is going to be rocky, but if we're doing that, then we're going to make it.
Yeah.
We're going to have our ups and downs, but we're going to make it.
Yeah, and it helps to have a goal.
Absolutely.
Like what are we working toward? What if I want to purchase a house, then what steps do I need to take to get me there? Right? So you have to be able to visualize and have something that you're working toward. Because I'm telling you, if I start dating someone and they're really not into the finances, because I have those conversations. Well, what does your finances look like? I don't want to know what's in your bank account, but I need to know that, because if I'm someone that has my credit together, I have my finances in order, and I need to now be submissive to a husband, can I trust you with my money? You know, so we have to really understand that, because now it's not just mine. Now it belongs to us. Now, if you're someone who's spending a lot, are you really putting forth the effort to make sure that the money is where it's supposed to be?
I do workshops and seminars, and I have one where it says, "What did you know first?" You know, and I'm single and saved, and well, we're adults.
Yeah,
right?
sure, absolutely.
Did you know your spouse's favorite sexual position?
Mm-hmm.
or did you know their FICO score first?
Wow.
Do you know who they're rooting for on a sports team, or do you know what type of 401k plan they have at work?
Wow.
You know, will you marry me? Well, before it gets to that point, should you know what their credit score is like?
Yeah.
And I think that those are the questions we should be asking.
Sure.
But we're not being told, well, that's rude. You should no. That's not rude. If the most precious thing that we could ever give to someone is self.
Yes.
So if I'm giving self to you, it's not rude for me to ask you about your spending habits and your credit score. What's your financial future? At what age are we gonna retire?
We're gonna work all our lives.
Exactly.
You know, when do we get to enjoy our time together after working for so many years? And you brought up a good point, is that we've been taught to learn all of the other stuff. You know, he dresses nice, he smells good. Okay, he drives a nice car. Okay, is brother paying his car note on time? You look good. You show up real nice and clean and all that, but are your bills paid? We're not asking those questions. We're just looking at what is presented without really diving deep into the information that we need to know. Because when you, it's something about when you join yourself together and you become one. If I'm with someone who has a lot of debt, now I have a lot of debt. If I'm with someone who is not responsible with dollars, then now we're not responsible with dollars. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, because your dollars will make up for their lack of responsibility.
Exactly.
So it is very important that it's great that they look good, it's great that they smell good, it's great, and you want, with me, when I sit down with clients, I sit down with people, I believe that you should have everything that you want.
Yes.
But let's work on the way of doing it. Because once you get there, you tend to find that, especially if you're thinking things are going to make you happy.
Oh, no.
Happiness is not in things.
No.
So now I've got this, I've obtained this, it gets old, it gets stale. So what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to accomplish in life? We also have to start thinking about legacies.
Yes.
What will my legacy be? What will I be teaching to the next generation and the next generation? I ask people this question all the time. I ask people even in their 20s, and I think people in their 20s, I don't know why the answer is yes. But if you ask them, do they know about the Kennedys and the Rockefellers, they'll tell you yes. And I say people in their 20s, why should they know about it? Because, a Kennedy or Rockefeller have not. I'll date myself a little bit. When I was growing up, you had 3 pictures in your house. Jesus, John Kennedy, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
Okay. So I get it. And so the next generation, but now those pictures aren't in the house anymore.
Correct.
But we know them, we know those names because they have left a financial legacy.
Yes.
But if you ask people, do you know your great-great-grandfather?
Yeah.
Well, why not? If he had left a financial legacy, if he had started something to where there was money handed down from generation to generation, then you would probably know who that person is.
Absolutely.
Well, Wayne, that's deep. I'm just going on a date, and I'm just. But now you like him, and you like her, and you're thinking about spending the rest of your life together. What the question that you ask, like, how should we prepare? What do we do? And we've been taught, honestly, to feed the monster.
Yeah.
And the monster is the system.
It is.
And it's self-feeding. So if you don't understand and know how money works, you're going to always feed the system.
Yes.
When the system is designed and willing for us to be fed.
Yes.
And to grow and nourish. The system will nourish us. We just have to know how to operate in a way in which we will be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because no matter what we do, the system is going to be fed.
Yeah.
You're going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
There's certain things you're going to do. You have to buy products. But in the meantime, we can do really well. So I would say, let's have these discussions.
Yeah. We can't even really marry right right? Because we're so frustrated, we're so bogged down in debt that we just, it makes it for an uncomfortable situation. And you mentioned something about legacy. Even with my son, something that I teach him is about saving money. We have three little buckets, three little boxes where when I give him money for cleaning up, he might get $1, he might get $2. But I allow him to put that money into the giving box. Then he has a saving box, and then he has a spending box. When it's time to go to the store, you can't go take out of the giving box. You can't go take out of the saving box. You only can take out the money from your spend. And I think it starts so early. I don't think children can't be taught about finances, because after a while, my son was 1 and 2 years old. He was really just used to getting whatever he wanted at the store. Mommy, I want this. Mommy, I want that. And I'm getting that. But then after a few years, you're like, wait a minute, hold up. I'm spending too much money in this gift giving. And so now I need to develop a system to where that spending is controlled. And I think we have to apply that same thing to ourselves when we're looking to be independent in our financial situation before getting married.
And that exercise is great. We should all do that, because you're teaching him to be the type of man that will be able to excel in this world.
Sure.
He'll be a leader. He'll be because he will know how. Nobody will ever have their proverbial thumb on him.
Yes.
Because he'll know how to manage his finances.
Correct.
And yes, we should do that. Even when we come together, we learn late. It's never too late to learn.
That's right.
You come into the party and you start learning, and then you have to make adjustments. Mm-hmm. We're gonna adjust regardless, because if our credit is bad and we can't get what we want, or we're gonna adjust.
Yeah.
That's